Hi, Archishman.
Hi.
Thank you for doing this. This project is actually Conversations on Masculinity in Science, and as feminists, we often tend to focus on women and their participation in science. We also focus on questions of how scientific method may be gendered, how the hierarchy of disciplines gets gendered, but we don't often engage with the question of masculinity in science. So this series of conversations is aimed at addressing the question of what does it mean to be a man of science? How do men scientists embody this concept, digress from it, understand it differently from the given narrative? And the given narrative is articulated or constructed on separations of multiple levels, separation of science and faith, science and emotion, science and politics and aesthetics also, and philosophy. So in many ways, this idea of science and probably the idea of the man of science gets constructed on the basis of what it is not. And so those are some of the things that we will explore today. And I'm with Archishman Raju, who is a physicist and works now at the NCBS at the Simon Center. So it's a pleasure, and we are sitting in the very beautiful NCBS faculty lounge. And so let's start, Archishman.
Thanks.
Pleasure. So, Archishman, before we really get down to some of the conceptual conversations, could you take us a little bit into your early childhood, early life? Where do you grow up with, the family background a little bit, school, region, and what it mean to be a young boy in Indian society?
Yeah, that's a lot of questions.
Just play with the thoughts. Just play with the thoughts.
Yeah, and I think usually one is not so used to, you're not used to thinking about yourself biographically.
I know.
Unless it is for some special purpose.
Right.
Well, so I was born in Delhi. I grew up in the early part of my childhood in Delhi till I was about 10 or 11 years old.
Okay.
Then I moved around a little bit. I spent some time in Indore and Bhopal. And then I came back to Delhi close to my college years, and then I went to college in Delhi.
In Delhi.
Yeah. My parents are both researchers. My mother is an economist, and my father is, I guess, a scientist. He, though, has always had a pretty broad view of knowledge. So, even though he studied mathematics and physics, he since then has studied history, philosophy, and with a particular interest in the history of mathematics. I guess growing up, I mean, I don't know, maybe if there's a more specific question about growing up, it would help me.
In the sense that, I mean, so you are two siblings, right? Two brothers? Yeah?
Yeah, two brothers.
And so was it a sort of a nuclear family or a extended joint family that you were part of?
Oh, no, yeah, not a joint family. And in fact, since both my parents were working, so I would often, in fact, I grew up a lot of the times in a creche, especially at a young age.
Right.
And I still keep in touch actually with
the people at the creche?
Yeah, because the creche was actually not a creche, it was somebody who lived downstairs.
Really?
And became a creche because
that's
of
how
my...
these were. And was this a university campus?
No. It was a residential building, but...
because before the creches came, that used to be the arrangement.
Right.
That somebody from the housing complex or somebody would, take care of children of working women. And
Right. So this woman, she had a daughter of her own who was, I think, maybe a year and a half older than me.
Then you. Okay.
And so I think from when I was about 2 years old, I sort of grew up in.
I see. And
her
this
house,
arrangement lasted for how long?
Pretty much till I was in Delhi, which was till I was about
10?
I want to say 10 years old.
years.
Yeah.
But you still have that connection with.
Yeah. No, so I
That's
still visit her
amazing.
regularly, and of course I'm good friends with her daughter.
Yeah. How was it a very special bond that led to you keeping in touch with them?
I guess so. Yeah. I mean, because I was, the first person I, in a sense, initiated the creche.
I see.
So, I mean, it eventually became a creche, at least in the sense that more children started coming in, and she sort of started taking, and she still has a creche of sorts where she takes care of.
Did your brother also go to this creche?
No. So that's the thing. I initiated this.
Oh yes, but later.
So my brother is much older than me. He is almost 11 years older than me.
I see. Okay.
So he also did not grow up in Delhi actually, but anyway, by the time I was growing up, he was already quite old.
Right. So school was in Delhi for the first 10 years? And was it a mixed school?
Yes.
Or was it an all boys school?
No, it was a mixed school. So my first school was it was just kind of my nursery, I guess, was just some place near home. But then my first school, something called Shiv Niketan, in Delhi, which was actually a very informal kind of school. So we didn't have uniforms, didn't have
somewhat alternative.
Yeah, a little bit. Though I honestly, at that time I didn't think about it too much. And since then I haven't revisited to figure out what their philosophy was. But it was certainly, somewhat unique. So some class, it only was there till about 5th standard, at least when I was there. In 6th standard, I think there was just one student or something. So people would basically transition.
So they were growing along with the school.
Yeah. And it was quite mixed, and I would say there were, I don't remember any separation of sorts in my Delhi schooling. When I did go to, so after that I went to Indore.
So when you were 10, you moved, family moved to Indore, is it?
To Bhopal first. So I moved to Bhopal first, and then Indore. My parents were also, depending on their sort of work requirements and so on, were not always in the same city. But so in my Indore school, actually, there was it was more separated. It was not technically an all boys or an all girls, or not an all boys school, but classrooms were separated. And
separate division for boys and separate division sections for girls. And activities would also be probably separate. And
more for the most part. Assembly lines were separate.
And you were there till your class 10?
Yeah, that's right.
How was it to be in a mixed school growing up as in
you mean in the separated atmosphere?
Yeah, separated. Or you've told me stories.
Well, it's I think I only realized it after I moved away from there, because I think it was an unhealthy atmosphere. It was. I think there's enough space for healthy interaction, which if it is stopped, right, ends up
becoming
sort of unhealthy,
prompted out of curiosity, which is never addressed.
And though I personally don't have any. Unhealthy only in the sense that you're curious and you don't have any way to. I would say the unhealthiest part of it was that there should have been more space really to be able to interact, because obviously it's a big part of especially
Because
that age for
yes.
boys and girls to
interact
and know each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's a very important point about co-education institutions.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, what's the point in having it if you then have separate classrooms?
Yeah,
But one of the logics for separate schools has been, for example, on the question of science, that in a mixed school, when girls and boys are competing together, the teachers tend to sort of get drawn into a lot of, in giving attention to the boys and not giving attention to the girls. And particularly in the science subjects, very often some commentators would say that girls are not therefore encouraged to do science, the boys who find more access to it, and therefore perhaps girls do better in science even in girls' schools. You know, if they are in an all-girls atmosphere, they're not competing. It's not an unequal competition in that sense. So I don't know what you would think about that. I mean, there are toss-ups, no, in terms of a social environment where you have a more mixed group, and an academic environment where probably those who are at the margins might do actually better without that competition.
I haven't studied this per se, but it doesn't seem to me,
Just
even if that be true, if that be true, that's necessarily a good solution.
Exactly. Yeah. Fair enough. But Archishman, and in the family, you were raised or surrounded by two people who were committed to a life of academics or research or whatever. Was that a part of your upbringing consciously? Did they sort of encourage you to move into more thoughtful professions, or could that be one of the reasons why you became an academic, became a researcher?
Yeah, I think so, definitely.
There's an obvious connection.
Yeah, definitely. It was, I grew up in a house which was full of books, I guess.
That's why, we take it so much for granted, but actually, it's not necessarily a given for many people.
And actually, I would say when I was young, I was not that young, as in now I'm saying, let's say 5th grade. I was not that interested in science.
You were not?
At that time, I was, interested in, probably poetry the most.
Literature,
literature.
Yeah.
I liked writing stories and poems and so on.
Did you publish them in school magazines and this and that?
Probably, I forget school magazines, but I sort of did collect them and nicely arrange them. So I still have them.
You have them?
Yeah.
You have to deposit it in the archive.
Oh, I'm not so sure. But
You should. What did you write about? What was?
Some of it was just experimental. I think I got some book on different poetry forms like limericks, haikus, and so on. And I used to try and make them. But then some of it was, I guess, even at that time. I haven't looked at this in a while, so I don't really remember details. But to some extent, I think.
But you remember your interest in literature.
Yeah.
You were clear.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And you had some good teachers who were teaching literature in school and things like that. Or was this an independent interest?
I think the interest was somewhat independent. A lot of it came from just reading these, I think, abridged classics and so on. But I would say I was, encouraged by the teacher. English was the subject I did best in at that time.
Yeah.
I did pretty poorly in science, actually, up until 10th. I can't reveal my grades on.
I'm sure it wasn't so bad. Yeah.
But I really only started thinking about science, I would say, after 10th, when, in 11th, they sort of make you specialize
Right.
and choose between the
Oh,
humanities
so
and the
it was
sciences.
as late as 11th standard.
Yeah, till before then, I was.
So then, why science?
I mean,
why
I
not
think.
literature, for example?
Yeah, I think that was influenced probably by my father.
Your father
Because he was he's a scientist, and my brother also.
Your brother
My brother's also a
yes.
scientist, so.
By the time he
yeah.
would have already been
Yeah, he by that time
college
was.
or PhD or what?
Yeah, he was already doing his PhD. I forget, might even have finished it. Yeah, might even have finished his PhD. So yeah, so I think
So
there were those
that was
examples.
influenced in the sense that they encouraged you to do it.
Yeah. They encouraged, and I guess it was also, some of it was, subconscious.
Like because your father and your brother have done science.
Yeah.
It almost seems
Yeah,
natural.
the natural path for me to go
path
on.
for
Yeah.
you to take. No? You don't want to break away from that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And your mother, what was her stand on it? She wanted you to do science, or she would have been okay if you did literature, for instance. Or didn't she want you to do economics?
I think she would have been. I think honestly, ultimately, even my father and mother, and I guess also brother, all of them would have been okay if I decided to do something else.
Okay.
But yeah, she certainly didn't push me to do economics. No. Yeah, but I think ultimately it was. Yeah, I guess it was something that just sort of happened. That I didn't at that age. To some extent, I would, and those interests have still stayed with me.
That's what. We'll come to that in a bit. Yeah. So you did your undergraduate in physics in Delhi.
Yeah.
Okay. It was which colleges?
So I was in Delhi University.
Delhi University.
Yeah, in St. Stephen's.
Stephens.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's 3 years? 4 years?
3 years. Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah.
Good. Was it good? Your
Yes.
interest in physics developed?
Yes. Yeah. No, I think my college years were definitely very happy years.
And were there girls? Was it a mixed group in physics?
Yeah. In fact, in our class, there were more women than men. Yeah, in physics. I don't know if this was particular to St. Stephen's, but
or particular to the batch?
Yeah, or particular to the batch. I don't know, but certainly in our batch we had, and in fact, the toppers of our class were
always the girls.
Yeah, they were the women. Yeah.
Well, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
And they generally are, and then what they get told is that, but you're topping the exams because you know how to crack an exam, you know how to rote learn, but you're not really good at the real stuff, which is research and abstraction.
Yeah.
Often this is...
But in this case, both the women are actually still in science.
They are.
Because I'm
both
still
the
in touch
toppers.
with both of them.
Both the toppers.
Yeah.
Wonderful, So, Archishman, you have you also sort of a deep understanding or engagement with philosophy, right? And so, was that also growing at that time? Did you, in a college like St. Stephen's, you already said that you were very interested in literature as a young. And then when did this interest in philosophy develop? Later or around college?
Yeah, I would say around when I was entering college. But I think already in my late school years, 11th, 12th, I think I had an interest in philosophy. I would say I did consider, to some extent, pursuing philosophy. And my father particularly felt that it would be easier to come to philosophy after studying science than to come to science after studying philosophy.
Oh, I see. That's unusual, isn't it?
Unusual in what way?
In the sense that when you're being groomed to do science, you often think that the best way to do is enter science and learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And rather than not get distracted by questions of philosophy, either philosophical underpinnings.
Right.
In that sense, it's.
Oh yes. Well, no. So I would say my father has had an unusual interest in science also, and certainly his interest in science in his own way is very also involves an engagement with philosophy.
With philosophy and things like that. Yeah. So, what did you start with reading? Do you recollect what were the kind of things that you read at the time? Or the questions, even if you're not reading. What are the questions?
I mean, I think, so this is what I was actually going to say about my early poetry. Some of it, I think, was already somewhat conscious, and this I'm now talking in, right, 5th or 6th, already conscious of growing up in a society where there was injustice. And in particular, I think I was most affected by poverty. It was, I mean, obviously in 6th standard, I mean, my views on it were quite sentimental, as is to be expected, but I was clearly already, I was already clearly felt this. So I think my interest in philosophy has always been sort of combined with, not philosophy as an abstract pursuit, but philosophy along with history, philosophy along with ideology, even though I didn't maybe articulate it as such back then. And so I remember,
politics.
And philosophy is connected to politics. So in college, I definitely remember reading Gandhi, reading Ambedkar, reading, I remember I was reading a biography of Che, this guy Anderson, I think I have the name right, John Lee Anderson, and in philosophy, I think, there's this book by Will Durant,
Story of Philosophy.
Story of Philosophy, and of course the Bertrand Russell History of Western Philosophy. I think I'd start going through them. I don't know if I'd understood much, but
you started. When did you read Marx? Much later.
Reading. I think I only read Marx when I joined my PhD.
PhD program.
And then this is also on my own. But
So your interest in philosophy was connected to all the history, politics. But what about science? Did you see any connections there in science and the question of social justice or inequality?
At that time, I don't think
you
so.
Didn't.
I don't think I had made those connections.
It was a separate thing.
Right.
And so you became a physicist in the sense that you, after that, logically decided to go ahead and do a PhD. And where was that, Archishman?
So my PhD was in the US, in Cornell University.
Cornell University. And you were doing what kind of physics? Theoretical physics?
Theoretical physics, statistical physics.
Okay.
So the physics of many particles, I guess.
And did you enjoy doing what you were doing?
I think so. I mean, I had lots of experiences in my PhD, but in terms of research, actually, I think, and especially from what I've heard of people's experiences, I would say I had a good experience. And to some extent, when I joined my PhD, I hadn't really made up my mind what I want to do, and I think that's not so atypical. It's sort of hard to know at this, physics has really reached a level of specialization today that without some exposure to topics which you're just not able to give to people at the undergrad level anymore. I mean, you can give some basic training in physics, but you need a little bit more exposure, I think, to really make up your mind on what kind of research you want to do.
What you want to do. So, while doing your PhD at Cornell, what were your experiences, for example, of, the physics experience was probably good. What were your experiences of being somebody who comes from the global south, from a colonial society, any form of understanding or experiences of racism that developed there, or global politics. And how did that develop? You speak a lot about your exposure to the movements, political movements, while you were there at that time, right? So you want to tell us a bit about that?
Well, so I would say that when I first went to the US, I had somewhat idealistic and incorrect view of the US and in particular of American institutions, like the university. And I think it was natural because in my undergraduate, there's some textbooks you study from. There are some Feynman is a big name and so on, and Feynman lectures are still.
Feynman lectures.
Oh yeah, the Feynman lectures are a big thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, in that book. But so when you come to a place, so Feynman actually spent some time at Cornell. He left eventually, went to Caltech. But so you go to a university where you think that all of these intellectual superstars, if you like, have been, and I think I think when I joined there, I had a certain sense of awe, I guess, a certain sense of, I don't know if I would say, I would have to think about the right words, but certainly I was not sure that I had the intellectual capabilities to, be in an institution like this. I was also somewhat young when I went because I had a 3-year undergrad. And I think it was really a gradual process of disillusionment with the university that played a big role in shaping my consciousness.
So beginning with something that today gets called the imposter syndrome, which I don't know. These are just terms used to describe times when we feel that we are out of place or that we are not good enough or we are not sure whether we'll be able to cope, etc., etc. Am I here just sheer by chance, whatever. So from there to the disillusionment, as you say, what was the journey?
I think let me just think for a second. So, I think there are many aspects to it. One of the aspects was, as I said, I had a very happy life in college. I had good friends. I used to, roam around, discuss things, and so on.
And friends from different parts of the world?
In college, no.
College,
I'm not talking about PhD. I'm talking about my college life. So I had a very happy.
Stephens.
In Stephens. So. But then going into the US, my first few years, I would say, first couple of years, I was very isolated in comparison. And again, I think that's a natural experience. And a lot of Indians who go to the US tend to cope either by, kind of becoming part of Indian groups. Or I guess becoming, if you like, assimilated into American society, but there are question marks about there are question marks about what that means. So it was it was isolating, and
because you didn't want to do either of these right away, or it didn't happen.
I guess
want to fit into the Indian sort of ghetto. If I may use the word, it's a bad word, but there's a certain kind of natural need, like you're saying, to be flock together, and develop this sense of Indian identity and all of that. And then on the other hand, what you're saying is the possibility of assimilating to the extent that you become American, quote unquote, in your ways of being, food, dress, style, whatever.
Right.
So if you were uncomfortable with both outcomes.
I don't think so I think in retrospect I can sort of begin to understand that experience. And I think what really shaped my consciousness was first of all, to be able to articulate what that experience was. And I would not say that, apart from small incidents, which I would not put so much weight on, that I directly faced racism, and I would say, but I do think that the atmosphere in American universities is one where race plays a very big role. And my consciousness of that, I would say, was shaped by my experiences with the Afro-American community. And it was in an understanding of what the Afro-American movement has meant for American society as a whole,
Right.
that I could start making sense of, some of the things that I think some of the things that were really shaping my experience. So, Cornell is in Ithaca, which is in upstate New York. It's what they call a college town. And Ithaca itself, there are not that many black people. It's sort of at the edge of what's nowadays called the Rust Belt. So there is also, in surrounding areas, you do have poverty, white poverty on the most part. A lot of that I think I discovered only later. But what it meant to have this kind of an institution, what the relationship of the university was with the American society, I would say became clearer to me in visiting a place like Philadelphia,
Okay.
which is around 50% African American, 50% sort of mix between African American and white. And there it's very clear because the University of Pennsylvania is really in the middle of it's in the middle of well, not really in the middle of, at this point, in the edge of West Philadelphia. And West Philadelphia, particularly as you keep going west, right, becomes sort of entirely black. And so you have a black neighborhood, and you can really see the gentrification as university students, most of whom are not black, right, you can see sort of this gentrification line in West Philadelphia of the University of Pennsylvania. And so the relationship with the University of Pennsylvania, which I think is the largest employer in the city of Philadelphia, or at least one of the largest employers, where all the workers, especially at the the cleaning, some of the security guards, where so the workers are black, so you have black workers, but then you have students who are on the most part white and international. So that really created this racial dynamic, which for me explained a lot of the dynamics of the university. Because the university is not, I think, just an educational space in the US anymore.
It's as entrenched in the political structures as anything else.
Very much so.
Did this sort of make you think of the parallels, for example, in India, the way we have universities here too, being very entrenched in a certain caste structure? Did you see parallels then? Do you see parallels now? Because we do know that, especially the kind of research institutes that we have, we see a very strong caste domination we see a domination, what I mean is of upper caste people. And there is a certain kind of, you see, workers are, always from low caste groups, and students often tend to be, of course, things have changed and are changing. But did you see the parallels then, or do you see any parallels today?
I would say, I think there are important differences. And the reason I say that is that, one, I think there are important differences between race and caste.
Yes.
And even though I think in our modern discourse, and actually one of the things that I dealt with when I was there in the US was this whole revival of the caste school of race relations. In particular, there's this book that had become top of the charts, Isabel Wilkerson's Caste, which I wrote a review on. But I think that caste, and I don't know if you want to write, it's a longer discussion, but I think there are two different. One is, I would conceptually distinguish between the way race operates in American society and caste operates in Indian society. And the second I would say is that I don't think Indian universities are like American universities. And the reason for that is that I think American universities really are part of they're part of, I guess to put it sort of blandly, they're part of empire. They're really part of justifying, not just within America, but really in the world, a certain worldview. And to give one example of that, if you look at people who go into American universities, let's say Indians. Or even lesser, but Chinese and so on. I mean, they go to American universities to study, to study their own societies. Yeah. That's right. Indian so the famous post-colonial school, of course, almost entirely, not completely, but almost entirely built out of Indian academics in American universities and the top American universities. And there's no parallel to that, I would say. I mean, there's no... Americans don't come to Indian universities to study American societies. So there is this, so the American universities, I think, plays a very specific role, not just for America, but for the world. And in fact, there is, I remember, there's an interesting article some years ago in the Financial Times, which said that if there's one thing that unites Barack Obama and Xi Jinping, is that both of them sent their children, to Harvard to study, because that's the, so it's a place to train the ruling elite of the world, not just of America.
Yeah, and it's so aspirational for people from the rest of the world, no?
Yeah.
Especially of people in the margins in their own cultures and societies also find it liberating and aspirational at some extent, and but then realize and recognize the problems with it also, I'm sure. But so this was a period for a lot of political consciousness for you to develop at that time, right? And you also speak at, this was the time when you started looking at, or was it even earlier, at Gandhi and other nationalist leaders who were also inspirational for a world civic society or movements, right?
No, so I think, funnily enough, I guess, that I would say I only got a profound appreciation of our own freedom struggle from, I have to think how to put this, but I guess at least it deeply affected me to know how again, the Afro-American movement viewed our freedom struggle.
Yes.
That really shaped my own perception of it, because I think growing up, and really growing up in the 90s, I guess, I think had taken our own freedom struggle for granted.
Yes.
And, aside from celebration of,
of the regular Independence Days and all that.
I wouldn't say that I necessarily thought there was much there. And so even though I had read Gandhi and I was interested in his ideas, I don't think I had very profound appreciation for how much he meant, not just for our own country and its struggle, but really for the world.
Globally.
And so seeing that relationship between Martin Luther King and Gandhi was very, very, very impactful for me, because I still think it's one of 20th century's great historical moments or events
Marvels, actually.
that Martin Luther King decides and the black movement as a whole decides to take up the ideas and study, and I would say further the ideas of our own freedom struggle. So that has definitely shaped my political consciousness and continues to do so.
I mean, I know you don't like labels, but would you describe yourself as a Gandhian in some ways?
I mean, I would be comfortable with that, but I mean, there are obviously
also combination of, say, a more radical Marxist understanding with a Gandhian consciousness, something like that, or
yeah, I mean, I think that's, in a sense, I would say that Marx for me represents, the radical wing of the European Enlightenment.
right.
And in a sense, the kind of almost, I mean, even though technically people would say the Enlightenment stops earlier, I would say the logical culmination of Enlightenment ideas, I think, really is, and in their radical form, is Marx. And then I think Gandhi is something that takes those, or Gandhi's ideas complete Marx, they further them in a way that I think you could argue is more relevant for our times.
So that's grounded in a deep humanism and questions of
and democracy,
and
really a democratic view of the whole of the people participating in the making of a new society in a way that certainly the Russian Revolution was not. The Russian Revolution did not see, I would say, the same kind of mass organization that our freedom struggle did. And that's not to, I'm not putting any struggle down, or I'm not even putting Marx down. I think they, in their place, one can appreciate them. But I really think that, you have to go forward. You can't be just stuck in the past.
So Archishman, with this kind of political terrain that you occupy, how difficult it is to integrate your interest in science with this kind of consciousness, or how necessary is it for you? How do you see your pursuit of science and your pursuit of philosophy and politics together?
Right. I would say that I think the idea that a scientist is somebody who should be interested in philosophy, history, and politics is only unusual in our times.
Yes, of course.
And
in an
because
earlier time, that was celebrated.
Yeah, because we've reached a stage where there's supposed to be extreme specialization and complete devotion to your career.
Yeah, and service to the nation, and a nation that might have even gone rogue or awry. No, it's deeply.
Yeah, but I would say in an earlier time, even those who wanted to serve the nation
yes, you see this often.
Were very comfortable with philosophy, with Meghnad Saha,
Bose,
Mahalanobis, Kosambi. I mean, there are many names. I think people who were scientists and were very. I mean, even honestly, Homi Bhabha was somebody who was. He's one of the founders of the Indian People's Theatre Association. So he is clearly
and
not
a progressive artist.
Yeah, right. So in that,
so
he's he's part of. So he's not somebody who is so divorced from.
So somehow that integrated perspective has gone missing because of over specialization and emphasis on that.
I think so, and I think a lot of it really is the American scientific system, and that's why I go back to the American university and how much of a role it has played around the world in shaping the view of. And in the American university, I mean, you can they talk about interdisciplinarity, but really I saw very little of it in this sense. In this sense of having this broader view of knowledge, which was very natural, I would say, to the scientists who came during our freedom struggle. To some extent,
Yeah. So what you're saying, of course, is that the man of science, in that sense, was not really a man exclusively of science. Much more integrated with the questions of politics, philosophy, ethics, and even maybe literature. But so do you find it difficult to sort of function in this universe? So you're learning to, how do you cope with this? The fact that it's quite different from your, your own understanding, your own worldview, and what you do or what you need to do. How do you reconcile the two, or how do you get them to meet in your own practice?
I guess I'm optimistic about the future.
Okay.
I think that we are really at a unique moment of history, because I think we are, and I think, people who are paying attention really can see this, that we are at a transition point in history where the ideas of modern society, as they were shaped by the European Enlightenment and eventually by Western colonialism, have really reached, I would say, a dead end. And you can see it very clearly in the crises that Western societies themselves are facing.
Okay, if I may just interrupt you a little bit here.
Yeah.
Do you think that science has played a very important role in this process?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And you're very conscious of that.
Yes. I think, I think Kosambi once put it by saying that scientists are the theologians of the bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
I think
are you a theologian of the bourgeoisie?
no, one would hope not. No, I don't think he thought himself to be one either. But no, but I think so.
How do we then re-envision this project of science?
Yeah. So which is why I'm optimistic, because I think with that collapse, suddenly space opens up for new ideas, for reimagining what knowledge should be about, what science should be about, in a way that's not overdetermined by a very particular experience. And in particular, I think societies in Asia and Africa, as they modernize, will have to very seriously ask this question.
The vision should come from here. Alternative modernity.
Yes.
But you're optimistic about the role of science.
About the role of science? I think science broadly understood, yes, very much so.
Broadly understood.
I think...
what do you mean? Do you mean by rationality, reason, broadly understood?
No, I wouldn't necessarily tie it to rationality. I think, again, that's a very Enlightenment idea, but very broadly, I would just say a systematic approach to knowledge, which I think has to be open to ideas beyond, this sort of excessive rationalism. And again, I think that's where I would say the philosophical critiques of rationalism that come from our freedom struggle, they very naturally fit into a question of
decolonizing of some of those concepts.
Yeah.
Archishman, the other thing about this over-rationalism or the over-rationalist world that we live in is probably a consequence of things that we have severed as separate. And I want you to respond to two things. One is the question of emotion and the question of faith. Both these, if you can respond to in terms of how do you see the place, for example, in this highly rational and over-rational world that we tend to sort of inhabit, and what does it do to emotion? Do we need to bring it back? How do we need to bring it back? What has been your journey in terms of understanding your own emotional self, and the second one is on the question of faith and religion, because you say you're an atheist, right? Yeah. So on both these, could you sort of respond a little bit?
Well, I think, emotion is definitely a central part of human experience, and I think it's a central part also of scientists' experience. I think it's very hard to understand the kinds of things that scientists do without. I mean, the kinds of things. I mean, they are often emotional decisions. But I guess I would say, on the question of faith, I would say the important question, as I see it, is really one of morality. And I do think that, I mean, if as you know, one of the people I admire, W.E.B. Du Bois,
Yes.
as he put it, science is a great and worthy mistress, but there is one greater, and that is humanity. And so I think the moral question cannot be left aside, and I think in that sense the question of faith is very important, because I don't think moral questions, that science has any particular
contribution.
Maybe I don't know if I would go as far as to say that has no contribution, but I don't know if it has authority, or it has some
Whether it can be the compass for us.
or I don't think it can be really setting the moral compass.
We need other things.
And I think that's where. So I would say I'm very. Even though I, would call myself an atheist, and partly I grew up that way. There are many questions on which I'm very comfortable with people who are religious, and much more comfortable with their worldview than I am with sort of an atheistic, scientific worldview.
Example.
So for example, I would find myself totally opposed to, say, I don't know, the new atheists, Richard Dawkins and Hitchens and so on. I think basically they have what I would call sort of a white supremacist view, which is being kind of portrayed as a so-called scientific view.
Which is so Eurocentric in so many ways.
And honestly, not very deep, I have to say. It's kind of not very thought-provoking.
Where would you draw inspiration from? Would you, like you refer to Kosambi's, would you say materialist traditions from the Indian and Asian African civilizations? Where would you draw inspiration from?
So this is what I meant to say. I think I'm very comfortable with the religious traditions, and in many ways, so I'm very comfortable with Gandhi, even though he is obviously a very religious, and he is, I think, quite genuinely a religious figure. I'm very comfortable with Martin Luther King, even though he's clearly a person who is, speaking in terms. So many of the things they will say, which they will put in the language of, I guess you can call it Hinduism or Black Christianity.
Hindu ethics in that sense.
I would be, I would be comfortable with them, and I think I would be able to understand them, even though I'm not, in that sense,
personally
religious. So. And I would be much more uncomfortable, I would say, with a kind of rationalist, technocratic view of society, which is very little place for, which is very little place for religion.
So now you also spoke of your interest in literature and art. How is that? Is it still informing everything that you do in science, in the world around you? How do you see yourself bringing together your interest in literature, art, music, and in your career as a scientist, for example? Or do you feel there's no need to really integrate everything? If they're separate, let them be separate. No, one can take that view also.
No, it's different. I feel that a lot of the Indian philosophical tradition actually is one of integration, of synthesis.
Synthesis, attempts.
Attempts at synthesis. And um, I guess I think I would see a connection between them. You know, it's kind of interesting. Often the I mean, you know, I'll have to think about how to explain this. But for example, I think, and many people would agree with me, that right now in science as it is practiced, there is a lack of creativity. A lot of it has become very routine. A lot of it has become
Mechanical.
about, you know, mechanical, about spending money, about you know, getting grants, getting published. And I think this is a critique that many people have articulated. And it's also, I would say, become pretty almost disciplined and rigid in terms of what kinds of things you can do. And it's not clear to me that the solution to that will come from within science itself. I think it may be that you will need creative input outside of science, and it may be from literature and art that will shape directions that science can go to, because it may, how should I say it? It may influence, you know, the philosophical, the worldview of the people who practice science. And will push them to ask different kinds of questions.
And then also turn that upon the institutions of science itself and the cultures of science. Why are we the way we are? Okay, so I'm going to ask you some direct questions. Why do you think there are such few women in science? If you firstly, of course, accept that there are, right? We know that there are. And you've moved from physics into biology, right? So the world of physics is very masculine and male dominated, especially the kind of physics that you do, theory physics and things like that. And biology, you see a lot of feminization of biology, but the top people in biology also happen to be most of the time men. I'm not saying that they are there are no exceptions, but the discipline itself gets a bit feminized because it's not so exact, it's not so So in this scenario where you have experience of being trained in physics and now working in biology and the transition, my question is, why do you see such few women? What is your explanation to it?
I would say two things. The first is, I think we should not think of scientists as somehow special, and one should not view this question as separate from the question of, for example, fewer women in the bureaucracy, fewer women in politics. And I think sometimes there is a tendency to find sort of unique explanations, but at least the way I view it, I think the question of women in science is not separate from the question of women in society.
I agree. But on the other hand, the reason why I ask this is because in science, our assumption is that it is free of prejudice and bias and largely works with merit and questions like that, which are, really amplified in science. So therefore, it becomes more important for us to ask this question in science than, say, anywhere else. So
right. No, I say that to say that because I think personally that the resolution of this question will not be separate from the resolution of the larger societal question.
Larger patriarchal question.
So, for example, I think that the thing that really contributed most to women coming in public life in our country was our freedom struggle.
Though their contribution is often marginalized and not as visible as we would want it to be,
Yeah, I don't think they viewed it like that. I think if you read their own writings, I don't think they viewed themselves as marginal actors. I think they viewed themselves as pretty central to the freedom struggle. And certainly
But when we What I mean is it's a reflective gesture. When we look reflexively from, say, 2 generations down, then you see a different picture. Maybe, of course, when you're in it, you don't feel that necessarily. Or even if you felt that, you don't really articulate it in those ways.
Maybe, yeah. Because, as I said, I'm again very influenced by the freedom struggle. So, on the question of women also, I'm very influenced by writings of the women in our freedom struggle. For example, Aruna Asaf, for example, Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay. And what you hear in their articulation is a quest for the liberation of women, which is not separated from a larger quest of freedom of the people. And they don't see, at least the way they formulate it, the women's struggle is within the freedom struggle and not separated from it. And I think they don't take a position which now would be much more popular of separating the two.
But suppose I were to push you a bit and say that that's definitely a larger question and we need to pay attention. But if we were to start fixing things as we go along, then what is it in scientific institutions that we need to do more to see that women, but also people from other caste groups, lower caste, people from different religious and ethnic backgrounds, why is it that we see so little of diversity in scientific institutions?
Yeah, and so the second part, of the way I see it is that our scientific institutions as they exist today are kind of inherited from, some of them are directly inherited from a period in which we were under British colonialism, and some of them, of course, are post-independence, but still, again, to some extent, inherit inherit a European idea of what it means to do science. And that's why I think when I say I'm optimistic, I think and I do think that a European enlightenment idea of knowledge was something that had little place. And actually, again, that's a thing that Indian women, the freedom struggle always talking about, that the European women's movement has differences from the Indian women's movement, partly because of the way it went down, in Europe. But and that's why I think if you are to imagine a modern view of what would a scientific institution look like, where knowledge was not, really a democratization of knowledge. That's how I would like to put it, where anybody can become a scientist. Then it'll involve, partly one would really have to critique this sort of inherited European view of what it means to do science, and it has many aspects to it. But I mean, we have to be, if we trace back, quote unquote, modern science to Europe, we also have to trace back the practices of modern science to Europe. Because any history of modern science, and that has its own problems, will always go back to Europe. So the practices definitely inherit from there.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything that you want to add? Say.
You mean just in general? Or?
In general. Any messaging that you'd like to do for young people, young men particularly, who come into science, and what are the kind of attitudes that you would like them to come in with,
Yeah. My feeling is that young people, especially, and to some extent, I was also describing this, growing up in this country, are I think, suffer to some extent from lack of confidence. And they don't think that I think I think because of the way it's a historical thing in the way society is structured, that you tend to limit yourself unconsciously, and there are many things I think we do to.
Particularly, do you think particularly girls and women have this issue? You're mentoring a lot of people now. Do you think women come with less confidence, girls come with less confidence, or you don't see that pattern?
Yeah, I mean, this may be true, but I don't know if I would, or at least I guess the phenomena I'm talking about is maybe not exactly that. But I think it comes from, but not unrelated maybe, but it comes from a belief, a lack of self-belief and a lack of belief in your self-worth. And I really think that that's something we have to work on.
Develop, yeah.
Yeah, that's something we have to
lack
develop.
Of confidence and lack of self-belief is often something that you see in marginal groups. They could be any kind of marginal groups, and the idea is to build that, I'm sure.
Yeah, to take an example, the reason why I think so many Indian students plagiarize is partly because they don't believe that they can write
what
themselves.
They can do.
That they can articulate their thoughts. It's not that they're, morally. It's just they don't have the confidence to articulate their thoughts because that's not been built.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this is really a time when we should build that.
And sometimes I feel, I don't know what you feel, sometimes I feel that, the self-confidence that we are expected to show sometimes becomes counterproductive, and because it becomes very assertive, overconfidence, whereas it's a good idea to be a little uncertain, a little unsure, and I know I'm probably addressing a slightly different phenomenon again,
right?
But and overconfidence and overcertainty also can have its own problems.
But I think a lot of that overconfidence itself also hides actually insecurities
and uncertainty.
So I think it's just a different reflection often of the same thing, at least in my experience.
So I suppose I think we should take away that Archishman's conversation with Archishman gives us at least this much to think about, that we need to have a broad-based understanding of the way we do science, right? And not to sort of sever its connections from philosophy, from politics. And as you also said, from the emotional connection that science can give us, or an emotional connection with things that can be offered to science. Maybe I hope I'm not overreading into your views. But yeah, so thank you and very much, and good luck.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me. Yeah.